Hey everybody, welcome to a World of Warships Blitz video. Today's video is not a battle. Today's video is a guide to how I gear ships. So this is so I'm going to talk about a recent addition to the account, which is the Missouri. So yeah, this is probably one of the ships that I've bought most recently. I haven't bought a lot of ships recently, or not bought purchased, but I actually got the ship, believe it or not, through the shipyard. So the shipyard, for those that don't know, is a place where you can spend some of the resources you earn during the game, such as copper, iron, and titanium. So what I did was, prior to the last shipyard rotation, I had a look what was on offer from the previous, and I had a look what was coming up. And I had a choice between the Cheshire, this, or whatever's in there at the moment. And this has historical value, so I basically got the Missouri. And now the Missouri is geared out, but I'm going to take you through the process. So I've actually tried to shoot this video before, made some choices about what I gear the ship with, and now you see what it looks like fully geared. But we'll talk you through the process. Now this, for anything tier 6 and under, I basically just buy gear and just guess at it. Tier 7 and above, I'll start to follow a bit of a process because gear starts to take on a bit of a price premium. Anyway, so here's Missouri. So the first thing I'll do when I get a Missouri is the first thing I'll do when I get a ship. So if it's premium, it's not so much of an issue, but if it's not premium, the first thing I will do is upgrade these as much as I can. If you can't get the ship to elite status by getting all of the slots filled, you are going to be at a disadvantage, particularly if you, for example, you've got main guns, you haven't got the fire control, you're losing range, you're losing damage. Those are big things that you need to get sorted. So what I try and do is I try and make sure that at all times I have a reasonable stock of blueprints. Now I do sell them down. I try and sell them down to 2 or 3 ships worth because yeah, over the course of earning getting the ships up through the tiers, the greens and the blues, you'll find that you will get an awful lot of those blueprints. I don't sell the purples unless they get well and truly out of control, but I will sell down the aircraft. Although with the British aircraft line coming in, I may regret that. As you can see, I have insufficient blueprints for the British line, but I'm not an aircraft carrier player, so I don't think I'm going to have any problems there. But I don't sell any of the golds. I will sell, apart from the, yeah, those that I'm pretty sure I won't be using. I'll just sell them down to a couple of aircraft carriers worth. But anyway, so what we do is first of all make sure that we have moved through to get the ship to elite status. What I will do is I will leave the elite ship bonus unselected. I'll have a look and see what the options are because when I'm going through the decision-making process, I need to understand what these 2 benefits could be. I almost never choose meritorious service, although I should when I'm moving up through the tiers, especially lower tiers. So for example, if I'm tier 6 and below, I should definitely have been choosing meritorious service because basically the simplest way to clear that elite ship bonus is to shell the ship and buy it back. And at tier 5, definitely affordable. Tier 6, bit painful. Tier 7, not really worth it. But anything below tier 5, yeah, whatever. So the next thing I'll do is make sure that the auto resupply is checked. I will auto resupply into these standard consumables. I will use premiums on certain ships, but usually for events, so it's not really an issue. I don't find my gold supply suddenly going down. For supplies, pretty standard. I'll make sure that I get those. I take them into battle anytime with any ship, although they have a cost associated with them, especially at tier 7, tier 8, tier 9, whatever. Above tier 5, you'll find that the amount that you earn from the battle is definitely worth putting these relatively cheap items on the ship. For battleships, it's the 3 that you'll see: the improved crew rations, the preventative maintenance pack, and the refined diesel. For a destroyer, I will swap out the preventative maintenance pack and put in high-grade coal for that surface detection. Those are pretty much standard, and at that point I have the ship ready to go, believe it or not. If it's a premium, I'll drop a commander on it. I'll come back to this commander who's a recent purchase. But then at that point, I will take the ship out. Now, I don't have historical camo. If I'll look and see if I've got any camo that I can put on the ship. At the moment, I don't, because I haven't been playing enough. What I could do for a destroyer, if I'm taking it out for the first time, is I will put seaborne assault on destroyers. I won't put them on any ship that doesn't need concealment, because basically 12,000 silver is a bit more pricey. But certainly for any destroyers I take out, if I'm playing for a session, I'll buy that seaborne assault camo and get 6 hours worth of benefit. Now the equipment is where it's really rough. So what I'll do here is I will play the ship. I'll play the ship without elite bonus. I will play the ship without equipment. And I'll work out what I need to do in order to improve the ship. So I'll work out, does the ship, so the first thing I'll ask is, does the ship have any weaknesses that need to be ameliorated? For example, I suspect that's probably where this came from. Looking through all these options, I have concealment, I have some speed, I have some AA and some damage control, and believe it or not, the one thing that hurt the most about this ship is the fact that it's a Tier 9 battleship, and it just doesn't have a lot of agility. So that was probably the first piece of equipment I purchased, because it was pretty much a slam dunk after taking the ship out. There are some ships where it's not a slam dunk, so just be aware that for some ships, it's actually been quite interesting, the decision-making process. There just doesn't feel like a lot of need to fill in the slots. What I've also done is, by playing the ship, I've realised that the ship isn't a brawler, it's a range player. So what that's done is that's made two decisions for me. That has made the decision for main battery firing range. That has made the decision for the main battery modification 3 to improve the dispersionate range. This came out simply because I normally have a choice between these three. I'm not sure how well these stack, so I've got this in the third slot, so I didn't worry. I've got steering gear modification 2 down here, so I didn't worry about steering gear modification 1. The ship has excellent damage control, so deck protection didn't seem to provide much benefit. It didn't catch fire anywhere near as much as the Bismarck. I suppose it's a terrible thing to compare it to. So that filled out the ship. And at that point, the only decision to make then is whether or not I buy it historical camo. And historical camo, whether or not I purchase is a feature of whether or not I have enough gold, how much I like the ship, and how likely I am to play it. At the moment, it's undecided, because the historical camo here is 5,000 gold, which is pretty pricey. I have enough to cover it, but that can buy historical camo for 4, or even that could buy historical camo for 6, 7, I think, those 6 tier 6 ships. So I've got the Mysore, so I should probably buy historical camo for that. I still haven't bought the historical camo for the Helena, so I do try and get historical camos for the premiums, especially because I've gone out and often they're ships that I want. So that is a Missouri. That's got the Missouri to its fully geared stage. I do drop commanders in. I use, there's a couple of ways to do it. One is you use it as a training, and this is currently training up Thomas Kincaid, who's a recent purchase. He is, so he's, if you do see legendary commanders on sale, not in crates, do have a serious look at them. I have got immense value out of David Beatty. Let me go show you David Beatty if I can find him. Let's go assign you. Let's go find David Beatty, who's somewhere down here. Here we go. So let's go have a look at David Beatty. He's not only reached level 12, but he's got nearly 600,000 free XP. So he's been used all over the place. So he is actually, he's stifling the development of my other British commanders because he's so well used. And if we go and find, let's go find some German battleships. Here we go. Let's go find von Hipper. Where are you, Mr. Hipper? Here we go. So he has not had anywhere near the same amount of use. Oh wow, that's available. Don't think that's going to be no two ways about it. That's what we're going to get. So he's made it up to level 9. Not the same amount of utility. I just don't have the same number of premium German ships, and I don't play them as frequently. Like the Nelson, the Warspite, the Monarch have been go-to ships and got a lot of use. So the Belfast, there's a whole lot of British ships that I have on my account. David Beattie's done a tour of all of them. Thomas Kincaid, definitely I would recommend. Oh, hello, I've lost where's my American battleships? Where's my American, oh, here we go. Right, yeah, Thomas Kincaid, definitely recommend him. Looking forward to the additional radar, which means you'll be great in the Indianapolis. The additional sonar, which means you'll be great in the Atlanta, great in, the Brooklyn. The additional radar also means you'll be good in the Missouri as well, which has 2 radar and will now have 3. Those radar, by the way, in the Missouri are not going to be so useful for you, but make sure that you're aware of where your teammates are when you fire them up, because you will be lighting up destroyers and cruisers that go into smoke, more for your teammates to deal with than for you to deal with, because your guns, your guns won't even finish probably half reloading by the time the radar goes on to cooldown. So that's gearing. Let's have a look at a couple of other ships that haven't been slam dunks, in terms of they've had a bit of a slow process. So we'll do a comparison between the Bismarck and the Tirpitz. So they're geared quite differently. They've been through several gearing experiences, a lot of traverse, because I thought that steering was what was required to dodge torpedoes rather than acceleration. But it's actually settled in, and the reason that they've settled in is quite interesting. The historical camo has really made the decision. So here the Bismarck has additional firing range and improved shell dispersion. So what I've done is I've stacked the shell dispersion with the main battery modification 3 to try and improve the Bismarck's capability to work at range. Deck protection obviously is basically German battleships are made out of flammable tissue paper. So deck protection is the way to go there. And steering modification, simply it's the best of the options in this slot, and those ships are not particularly agile and can benefit from it. The Tirpitz has ended up pretty much in the same space, so it's been all over the place for these last 2 slots, but ended up in exactly the same place as the Bismarck for the same reasons. However, here we've gone for the secondary battery firing range, the dispersion improvement, because what that's done is that stacked itself with the historical camo to make this a secondary spec ship. So you've got its secondary battery firing range plus 6% there. You've got an improvement down here of 10% range. It's obviously got Franz von Hipper, who will improve the dispersion again. It'll be quite interesting. I should probably try and take it out. So that means that you've got your secondary battery range running up to about 8 kilometers. It's still a battleship with poor dispersion, so don't get me wrong, it doesn't turn it into anything super, but it makes it something a little bit different and interesting. And it doesn't really have a place in the game, because brawling battleships they're just targets for destroyers, basically. It's been unfortunate. Anyway, so that'll take you through the gearing process, and you'll see that a lot of my, what's happened here? The Lion, you can see the Lion's still in development. It's not played nearly enough. I've played it a couple of times. Haven't really enjoyed it as much as I'd thought, so it's sort of ended up a little bit stuck. The Monarch, pretty standard for my battleships, which is the dispersion, the acceleration, and the steering gear modification. One last thing, it's a bit of a longer video, sorry about that, is that there are ships where I've struggled to gear them, and what I mean by struggled is making the decisions around what goes in the gear slots can be interesting, and that's because ships like the Brooklyn, ships like the Cleveland, if I can find it, they don't really have any weaknesses that we're trying to ameliorate. The Brooklyn is probably the best example, because it doesn't have that dispersion option in the first for the main battery. I've stuck with Traverse because that's simply the best of an ordinary lot. They have reasonable agility anyway, so I've just gone with agility sort of out of default. They have very good, these American cruisers have very good deck protection, fire control, flooding protection. They have reasonable acceleration. And this concealment is just because, I didn't really feel the need for anything else. So yeah, so you can end up with ships where it can be a bit interesting to make the decision. Sometimes it's the elite bonus. Here I have gone for meritorious service, one of the rare ones, because the other ones weren't particularly interesting, and I wanted to get through the ship as quickly as possible because I was really looking for the Cleveland. Final ship we'll look at sometimes is a specialist, and this ship is definitely going to get Thomas Kincaid on it because I think his AA, once Thomas Kincaid lights up the AA defence, ends up pretty close to Des Moines as far as the numbers are concerned. So what I've done is I've gone and spec'd it out for additional range, additional damage, which means that additional range is what will do the most damage, of course, because with Thomas Kincaid, who will be, let's go and find Thomas Kincaid. Because Thomas Kincaid, who, when he gets there, is adding plus 25% to skill duration. Yeah, it's going to be supercharging that that AA defense. So simply the extremely high numbers that we have here are going to be planes that fly in are going to be encountering it earlier, and they're going to be staying in it longer because basically it'll be hanging around a little bit longer. So we should be expecting quite good things, hopefully. I mean, as good as you can get AA and Blitz out of the Atlanta. So sometimes there are specialist builds, and I've got one or two more, like the fast Italian cruiser at tier 7, Le Terrible, the French destroyer at tier 8 are built for speed. So there can be specialist builds. I did say that would be the last one. There is one more that I'll show you for rather different reasons. And where is it? And that's the Nelson. The Nelson's gearing is rather random, and the reason for that is that I stuck those on early on. Since then, I've really done well in the ship, and it's a case of there could be better gearing options than this, but I'm doing so well in the ship that it's a case of it's not broken, so I'm not going to fix it. And so I've just left what I've originally had there and stuck with it. So you can end up in that sort of situation where you have some quite randomly geared ships, but if you're doing well in a ship, do you really need to tweak the gear is where I'd go with that one. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. I hope you found that at least interesting. It does take you through a bit of the thinking process that I go through in order to gear out ships. At some point I will have to make a decision around historical camo for this fella here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.